Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Fenix Logs. I am your host, Phoenix Rising. Today, we are going to be discussing my introduction into spirituality. I almost said spiritualism, but then switched to spirituality right there, and it came out spirituality. But you know, as you have seen by now, if you watched the preview as well as the episode 1, you will know that this is more so a long form, not overproduced series that I usually use bullet points for instead of a script. So you'll hear a lot of uhs, a little bit of ums. I talk a little bit slower of a gait. So if you hear that, that is why. I speak the way I speak when I deliver these topics. It's pretty much a long-form speech class, if you will. Speech class style with bullet points. Alright, so let's go ahead, jump right into it. The year is 2013. I am an alcoholic that is depressed. I am single. I am living with my parents still at the age of 24. I have a job that is not paying me the best, but it is an office job, and it is the first job that I have that is not a customer service job. Before that, I had worked in retail, and then after that, I worked in over-the-phone customer service for an electronics company. And then I got that current position that I had, and it was all right. Still depressed, still an alcoholic, still single. My friends Zach and Michelle are over one night. We are smoking hookah, and they bring up meditation. I don't know if it is because I was discussing how I was feeling at the time or what brought it up, but I knew at the time that there had to be something else, because about 6 months prior to that, I was coming home from a vacation, and I just felt completely empty, and it's the first time I'd ever felt that way. I felt completely void, empty, dead inside, and I knew that something was wrong on a very deep level, but I wasn't sure what exactly that was. So flash forward 6 months, early 2013, we are smoking hookah. This spiritualism topic gets brought up. Somehow we land on it. It is, I'm going to guess, I was just saying something along the lines of there has to be something different that I can do instead of drinking alcohol and smoking various things. I had smoked cigarillos, hookah. I tried to smoke cigarettes at one point, and my body was just like not having it. And funny enough, it turned into a thing where I only smoked when I drank, but I drank fairly often, and once it got to a point where my body was no longer trying to reject the smoke that was going into it from the cigarillos, I decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm only going to smoke very, very seldomly, and at which point they came over and we were smoking hookah, and it was fine for what it was. They'd come over, we'd smoke, we'd hang out, good time. Had to be more than substance abuse, though. And that is when Michelle introduced me to a channel called Spirit Science. she recommended I check out a video of theirs. I can't remember the specific one. It was going over meditation. It might not have even been Spirit Science that taught me about meditation, but that is a channel that sticks out in my head. But we'll get to them in a minute. So we got talking about meditation and astral projection, and I laughed when I heard about this because I really truly in my mind thought that astral projection was just made up for the movie Insidious, but it definitely was not. It was a thing, and so I started laughing when, you know, they're like, oh yeah, astral projection. I'm like, you mean that fake thing that was there? No, it's a real thing. I became obsessed with the topic overnight. Really wanted to try it, but to run, first you have to walk. To walk, first you have to crawl. So I started out with the basics. Meditation. How to get into a meditative state. And of course, like any uninitiated person, you hear meditation, and what do you envision? You envision a yogi sitting cross-legged with the index finger on the thumb wrapping the index finger, resting on the knees. It's one of those things that every time you envision meditation, that's what you think of. Turns out that is not all it is. You just need to get comfortable, relaxed. There are different types of meditations for various desires, various states of mind, things along those lines. So I find one that's supposed to be specifically for an OBE or an out-of-body experience. It's called the Crystal Lake. The link for this is in the description. So check that out. And make sure to check it out if you are interested. So this Crystal Lake meditation, this astral projection is what it's called. It walks you through becoming aware of your body from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet. Teaches you breathing exercises, a good pace to breathe. It's a very fantastic meditation to start off for anyone that's in a kind of a beginner mindset. So I highly recommend checking that out, as I said before. But moving forward, the one thing that happened in this meditation, and I was amazed because in talking to people, this isn't supposed to happen. The very first time I listened to it, I opened my third eye. It was the very first time I had ever consciously tried to manipulate any form of energy in my body, and it turns out I was able to open my third eye. And the way you can tell that happens is there is pressure in the spot between your eyebrows, or just above, either one. It's so the pineal gland, which is what the third eye is referred to. It basically sits in your brain, and when you feel it open, it's in that spot. But it's not always the same spot for everyone else, because no body, as I said before, is built the same. No two bodies, rather, are the same. And, it's just one of those things where as you grow, you realize that things are not as standardized as every institution wants to teach us that they are. And that is something that we will discuss later, but for the sake of brevity, opened my third eye, changed my life. It became a thing where I looked forward to going to bed because I could meditate. I could wash away the stress of the day. It became a ritual for me, an addiction, if you would say. And And that's another good thing to talk about here, is how addictions in general, how they work, is some people, when they're addicted to something, the only reprieve from the thing they were addicted to, in my case, I was addicted to alcohol. I didn't realize it at the time, but I craved it to alter my mood, to deal with the stress of my life at the time. And after I found meditation, I was drinking less, meditating more, and it's a great thing to dive headlong into this, but there is a danger in that they say too much of a good thing is a bad thing. I would recommend daily meditation practices because when used correctly, it can really help you focus, it can help you relax, it will keep you grounded. However, what I soon got into was too much of meditation, not enough action. So with certain spiritual concepts, you as a being are vibration. Everything in existence is of a certain vibration or frequency. So we are vibrating in a quote-unquote third dimension vibration. And if you raise your vibration above that of the third dimension, let's say you go into the fourth dimension, you will phase out and basically just disappear, go into the fourth dimension. And that, for a time, is what I was really hoping to just steamroll and achieve. Funny enough, it's not achievable in that manner. One major part of spiritualism and the results you receive are stemming from your intention. It comes from ego, that comes from emotions. A lot of emotions are driven through fear or desire. For the reasons of this place being so negative, most of the emotions that we feel are rooted in negativity, or reactive. They create reactive responses to things, not proactive responses. So I was, again, replacing an addiction with another addiction. And my intention was not of a place of love. I'm sure I was thinking self-love in the fact of, okay, I've been thinking of keeping everyone happy around me for so long. It's now time that I show myself that love and I keep myself that happy. However, I then wanted to just disappear. Okay, I've dealt with this long enough. If I disappear and escape this existence and transcend into a more peaceful existence on a higher dimension, man, that would be really great, right? However, what I didn't take into consideration, or honestly didn't care about, is how it would affect my friends, my family, the people who relied and loved me. Or rather, relied on and loved me. I could not, like today, I think back to that and I think how simple-minded it was and self-serving. It was not out of love. That was not a decision based out of love. That was solely selfish. And again, I was going down a path where I wanted to just meditate all the time and not do anything else. I would go to work, I would get off of work, come home, put on binaural beats, because I after the Crystal Lake meditation, after listening to it a couple of times, I needed something else. I wanted something more freeform. I got into strictly binaural beats and would listen to those and set my intentions and just let the experience flow. And it was, for all intents and purposes, it was an amazing feeling, but as stated before, it was out of an incorrect space. And that's all I was doing, was going to work and meditating. I wasn't hanging out with people. I wasn't doing anything, and it threw my sleep schedule off because that's what I essentially doing, because I was new at meditation. And one thing that people that are new to this this exercise, if you will, one struggle that a lot of newbies have is they struggle with remaining conscious. You get so relaxed that you just fall asleep. Your mind drifts, right? And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to let your mind drift and then come back. Once you realize that your mind has drifted, just understand, breathe a sigh, let your mind come back to your focused intention, and just do that. Don't let the stress of negativity of, man, I'm really struggling to focus. Don't let that ruin your mood, because that's going to bring you down. It's not going to uplift you like you intend to do. So that was one thing that I was going through. Just strictly that. So I did that for off and on. It was an off and on thing. It was not something that lasted for months on end. I did. So I would meditate, and one of my friends, who is a skeptic of pretty much anything that cannot be proven by the scientific method, their negative energy would bring me down, right? Because a lot of what we experience is also rooted in belief. What we believe, that does carry energy with it. So if you absolutely do not believe something can be, then you're not necessarily going to have that experience. But what my friend failed to understand is that because of believing, holding that power, and them not being able to then experience it, and honestly, I'm breaking it down here, so I need to break this down. What I mean from that statement is not that if you don't believe something, you're not ever going to experience it, right? That's essentially what science is there for. Science is there to, from a very finite realm, say this exists because of this, right? That's a scientific method, and you should always be questioning things. So I can respect why he would be skeptical of spiritualism. However, if you do not believe something, if, let's say you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe that you can achieve something that's really, really hard, you will not go as far as you possibly could, because you are holding yourself back. Again, that could be rooted in fear. It could be rooted in some other form of negativity, but the fact remains that you are infinitely going to be more productive at something or whatever that you believe in, whether it be, so you believe in God, so you're going to go to church more. You might be a good Christian and, do good for your community. You might try to uplift other people, what have you. If you're just going there because you feel like you've done bad and you need to repent, you're going to be so stuck in a negative mindset from that religion that it's going to not be a very good experience. You're going to be holding yourself back from where you can regress. And I use that as an example rather than spirituality, because that is kind of what I grew up with. I didn't grow up in the Bible Belt per se, but I did grow up in a small farming town filled with highly religious people. So if that's why I use that as an example rather than anything focusing more so on spirituality. But the point of this, everything, is that negativity will hold you back. Lack of belief will hold you back. So you need to just let go of your negativity and keep an open mind. I know tons of people that say, oh, I'm open-minded. And then the minute you try to bring up something that's outside of their religious belief, they're like, oh no, that can't be. Again, it is false. They think that they are open-minded, and then they immediately slam the door when introduced to a concept that is foreign to them. and they get aggressive with it. It's, it's beliefs. People get really aggressive when you get into beliefs. So I've gone off on a tangent. I had a friend that was holding me back. We are going to get back into the story. Michelle had introduced me that night to a YouTube channel called Spirit Science. And with Spirit Science, I, again, was completely obsessed with the idea of meditation and getting into spirituality and just really trying to delve in, undo like the religious programming that I had, and just kind of figure out everything. Because, mind you, I had always been a curious individual. I had always had this suspicion that because there were multiple religions that shared multiple things, that all these things probably really did happen. It was just that institutions decided to band together for one purpose, and that was control. And I had that sneaking suspicion, and I have received confirmation of that throughout the years. But focusing specifically on this, Spirit Science came out with a quote-unquote documentary. It was really early on in that channel's existence, and it was their 12th video. It was called The Human History Movie. And I told you I watched that all the time. I watched it all the time. It was I probably watched it at least 20 times at the very least. It's an hour-long video, and I really got into it. I was watching it, and again, it was a channel that did not at the time post any form of citations. So it's they didn't quote their sources. They didn't provide any sort of documentation as to how they came to the conclusions that they had come to. And then I had gotten back with an ex-girlfriend of mine, introduced her to the spiritual concept, showed her the Human History movie. She was really into it for a period, and then flipped the script immediately. It is worth noting that her family was also very religious, so could be that they talked her into it, but I have honestly noted and perceived her constantly flip-flopping throughout her life, so this was not a shock. However, she flip-flopped, and at the time we had started looking into crystals and how they use energy. They are living entities that use energy, and you can charge them in the sun and change the energy basically within your house, within your environment. They're very powerful things if you know what you're doing with them. They can be, anyways. Again, goes to belief. But she, all of a sudden one day, just flipped the script and was like, that Human History movie's kind of out there. Like, it's very interesting, but also it's kind of stupid. And then I'm just like, oh, okay. And then, that the people that were around me, not Zach and Michelle, but the people that were around me were kind of trashing that. And then I went through and just was like, that's interesting. Like, a really close person that was into it, suddenly out of nowhere just started trashing it. And I'm like, well, I need to take a look at this. So I for the first time, and I say first time because I'm not the type of person to honestly look at the comments on a YouTube video. That's not ever who I've been. I just kind of go from one video to the next and make my own conclusions and go. I don't really comment very often. And then I clicked and I'm like, wait a minute, so you mean to tell me that this dude could just be making up a bunch of stuff? And then that creeping doubt pulled me completely out of it. I started to regress completely, and I just kind of fell out of everything, almost, of that belief. I stopped meditating. I started drinking again. I stopped believing, essentially. And it was a very, very sad thing indeed, because I want to say that happened in early 2014. So it had been about a year that I had been doing this practice of meditation and really just investigating the mysticism around these topics. I remember one time I had a very vivid OBE. I want to say it's an OBE because it was a very lucid dream. But I was basically floating around the cosmos with my spirit guide. We were going from planet to planet. We were talking about sacred geometry. It really just encouraged me to keep going with what I was doing. And then in a few months' time, I had just found myself completely not practicing it in any degree, just based on my surroundings. The people around me telling me it was bullcrap. The majority of them. Even Zach at some point had been like, yeah, it's kind of out there. I don't know if I believe it or not. He's very questioning of it. His belief was not there. However, Michelle, throughout all the years that I've known her, has typically maintained this even keel. Just, it is a thing. She's definitely been in it, and she's been a constant source of positivity whenever I've interacted with her. So I actually credit her for saving my life, and I told her that recently that because of her that I am not a 35-year-old depressed alcoholic still living at home. That is a topic for another day. How I got into the military and just kind of had the bravery to do that. We'll get into that more, but as it relates to here, in my note here, I say I drew the line at meditation, and I can't say that that's 100% true, because while everyone was talking trash about the crystals, and I did have doubts about that, and then people were trashing that human history movie, and then that suddenly had doubts about that video that at one point I truly loved to watch. I really want to say, like, I recall stopping meditating and just drinking all the time. So yes, I did join the military, as I had stated a minute ago, and then the next time I can remember meditating was in basic training. It was an instance where I had gotten, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I made a mistake, and I was just getting made fun of, and I was in a bad emotional state just because people were reaming me relentlessly. So we didn't have anything going on in the dorm that day, so I went and laid on my bunk and just stared at the ceiling. I separated from everyone the best I could, because there were only like 5 of us in the dorm room at the time. Other people had been sent elsewhere. I think it was a Sunday. So I'm laying there just doing a breathing exercise, staring up at the ceiling, and someone comes over. It's like, hey, don't take it too hard, we're just giving you shit. And I was just like, hey man, it's fine, I'm just meditating. And it was the first time I had done it in so long. I had almost forgotten what it felt like, and it helped me so much, because now that I'm talking about this, I now remember that between the time that I stopped meditating and actually practicing spirituality, and then in left for basic, which was about a 4 or 5 month period, I had completely regressed. I was addicted to alcohol again, just really wanted to get drunk all the time. I just wanted a beer literally all the time, and it was not healthy in the slightest. So I got back into spiritualism, got my feet back under me while I was in basic, and when I came back, I had discovered angel numbers. I'm seeing 1111 all the time. I'm like, what does this mean? So I look it up. I talk to Michelle and Google it, and I find out what an angel number is. Basically, angel numbers are just number sequences that you see repeatedly. And when you see those, like let's just say 1111, for instance, or 111, 222, 333, or 2222, or 555, or any combination really of numbers 2 digits to 4 digits. That's typically the norm that you see is what an angel number is. If you see it on a consistent basis, or let's say you are thinking about a specific thing that's giving you this really emotional feeling, and it's very, very strong, like you're completely consumed by this thought, this desire, this emotion, and you look at the clock and the clock is 333, then you know what, maybe there's something to that. Or maybe you're dealing with an invoice and there's an invoice number, and in the middle of it you see 777. You're like, okay, that's strange. So then you look up what it means, and it means whatever you were thinking about, or it's a message to urge you into action, like now's the time to do whatever you're supposed to do, or it's a warning that, you know what, hey, things are going to be changing, you should prepare for it, you know? When it lines up to that and it feels like a gong goes off in your soul and everything is just clicking, that is how you know that you've seen an angel number. So I come back and I start getting into angel numbers, seeing them, understanding what I'm seeing, and I was a break-in training, so between basic training and tech school, I had 4 months, and that same ex wanted to come back into my life. She had broken up with me 3 weeks before we went to basic training, and before I went to basic training, and we had been engaged at the time. So she left me and I came back. She wanted me back, and I needed some entertainment. So not the biggest fan of my intention here, but I did take her back solely on that basis, knowing that once I left, I would probably be done. Things changed over that time period, and then we split up again because she was treating me poorly, and I just got sick of it, and I left. Her behavior had never changed, so I don't know, there was that whole spiritualism thing that dragged me out of the alcoholism, and then once she came back in, I was dragged back down to where I was. Then when I left for basic training, I found that spirituality again, that love for it, that spark, and I really started to realize that meditation was really what saved me to begin with, and everything else that had come from that was just answered all the questions that I had been asking my entire life. So then I came to the conclusion that why does it matter if the people around me don't believe in it? Why does it matter to me that our beliefs are different? I'm experiencing these things. These people are not. They don't want to go into it. They don't even want to try to understand. Or you know what, in some cases they do try it out, and they're not seeing the results quick enough. They're not experiencing the same things, so they try to shut it down. And it was just one of those things that, I really did come to that conclusion that it does not matter that they are not having these same experiences or these same feelings, or that they don't believe in it. And I was able to spiritually reinforce myself at that point. And ever since then, it's been like I've had this bubble around me that I didn't make it my mission. It is not my mission to tell people and preach to them and make them believe it. It is up to them to want to do that on their own. If they don't believe it and they don't want to have that experience, that's fine. I understand that no two journeys are ever the same through this life. I've said it before, and I will say that again every single time until the day that I die. No experience that two humans have are going to be the same. We might start off in the same spot, we might end at the same spot. We might hit the same checkpoints along the way, but how we get to each checkpoint is going to be different. Each situation that we deal with, no matter how similar they are going to differ in some way. We are going to react differently in some way. Our intentions will be different. And I'm going on a very long monologue here, just kind of repeating myself in very various ways. But you get the idea, right? No two journeys are the same. So it is not my job to bash it into your head when you are resisting. What my job is to put information out there for those that want it or need it, because I do believe that this message is going to find someone who needs it. And it doesn't matter how many views I get on these videos. It doesn't matter to me if I get monetized or if I make a ton of money out of this. Like what else would I be doing right now than making this video? Probably playing video games. I would not feel productive in any way. I would not be spreading my message, my truth, the light. I wouldn't be doing any of those things. So I'm just going off on this tangent right now because none of that matters. And that's what I want everyone listening to this to understand, is that from those beginnings, from those experiences, from that basis, I was able to understand a lot of things about human nature, about people who and their journeys, and what it means to get on this path, because it takes a lot. It takes belief, it takes backbone to be able to stare at that adversity, take it from the people that are closest to you, that you herald as your best friends, and don't come at you and say, we care about you, we're worried about you, because you're dabbling in things that are too dark or are taboo. And it's like, all that is based in fear because they have been taught fear. You have to break that. You have to be able to stand there and tell them, look, I love you, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going down this path. And then they're going to freak out, and you're going to face adversity before you can break into the truth. Unfortunately, that is what a lot of people are going to have to deal with when they go through this whole thing. And I hope that by sharing this experience with you all, that this gives a good groundwork to move forward, because I'm going to be quite frank, I re-uploaded my channel trailer that I had created because I was unsatisfied with the first cut. It was already published, it was part of the playlist, the Fenix Logs playlist, and then I deleted it. Because between the time I posted that video and recorded a couple days ago, I had become obsessed with the views, my analytics, and this happens every time I get into doing something on YouTube, right? I look at the analytics, and then when it's not working out, I tend to get discouraged. So I felt like I needed to pump out a real quick video to try to get some retention. So I did a trailer that was heavily scripted because it didn't come from the heart. It did not align with the message of embrace the light, spread the light. It came from an egocentric thing of, I need to do this, I need to upload this to get some traction, to keep some momentum. That's not the point of this. And I, for a brief period, was going to lose the script. However, what I did is I reassessed and I pulled myself back and redid the trailer earlier tonight. I was honestly feeling completely lost this week as I thought about where I wanted to go for my next topic. I had multiple topics written throughout the week, and I had multiple bullet points like speech class, but it all felt like work because it didn't flow like last week. Last week flowed completely fantastically. It was a wonderful experience to get all of that out. And then the channel trailer came out, and I had to heavily script a lot of it which was only 3 minutes. It's gone now. And by the time you hear this, the new one will be up. But I had to completely scrap that one because it was not aligning with, again, what the message was. And I'm really glad, and it was really affirming to me what happened today. It is currently Sunday night. And throughout the day, I was thinking, man, I don't know what I'm going to record. I typically record on Sundays. And then when I was in the shower, which is where I got that message earlier of in 3 months' time, you will be king, I got this sensation, and I just closed my eyes and imagined it flowing to me. And it was more of a reminder, just, hey, dude, get back to what matters. And I was like, okay, I will. This is what I know about. This is what I'm going to talk about. So I still kind of feel a little bit lost, and I opened up YouTube, and I came across a channel called The Alchemist. And it is another spirituality focused channel. I highly recommend you check that out. I will put a link to the channel in the description. And it was just eye-opening how into it I was immediately. And again, me following my instincts, I realized at that point that, yep, this is it. Just follow your instincts. I got good ones, and Spirit tells me this all the time when I'm communicating back and forth with the universe, which is essentially like prayers. It's just like open. You put out a thought, and you'll receive a response, and it's just more like a feeling, but you know what the feeling means. That is essentially what I refer to as communicating with Spirit or speaking to the universe. I refer to it as a lot of things, but that's how I receive these messages. It's more just like a feeling hits me, and it's deciphered. And hey, that's what this feeling means. So coupling that feeling in the shower with coming across that channel, it really helped put me back on the path for tonight. And it just really reaffirming. So thank you for dealing with that rant here while I move away from the topic. I just had to get that out because as a creator, I have had a history of having a lot of frustrations with the creative process, and it's been nice to be able to break through, reassess, ground myself, and move forward. Now, there is one recent experience that I would like to talk to you all about here on this Fenix Log as it relates to spiritualism and channeling your higher self. So earlier this week, I randomly had a wild hair to listen to a song from my past. The song in question was Boats and Birds by Gregory and the Hawk. Again, I'll link that in the description if you want to listen to it. The story behind that song is when I was that same ex, I was in a tumultuous spot in 2009. It was Valentine's Day, and I was feeling a little bit depressed. I found that song on a friend's MySpace page. That's really dating things back, but I found it, and I loved it. It instantly spoke to me and filled me with hope. For some reason, just kind of expanded my awareness of the negativity that I had about Valentine's Day. Notoriously in the past, I just consistently hated that holiday, quote-unquote holiday, for various reasons. As I don't know if I touched on this in Fenix Log 1, but in high school I was single pretty much throughout the entirety of it, and for various reasons that came from a place of having a negative outlook on myself from the bullying that I had in elementary and middle school. So I never thought I really had much value in the looks department, which turned out to be a total lie, and or personality wise, which again turned out to be a total lie. So the first big relationship I was in got cheated on, and it was an on and off affair for a decade. And in that whole thing, one of the tumultuous times was Valentine's Day. Depressed, I hear this song. I feel a pierce of hope. Just hope kind of hits me, and I feel happy, hopeful, calm. And it changed my perspective of Valentine's Day as a whole, and I decided that instead of treating it solely as a romantical love holiday, what instead I would do is I would embrace love in general. And this is well before my spiritual journey, and I decided to take that perception and gift it to my circle of friends. So what I did is similar to the Galentine's Day episode of Parks and Rec. I wound up just getting a group of my friends together and going. We had this bowling alley that we would go to called AMF in Pekin, Illinois. So we would go there and hang out, and that started a tradition of us just hanging out at the bowling alley throughout the next year and change. So it was really interesting that I had that experience, because when I listened to the song, something came over me, as I've grown throughout my spiritual journey. When I feel something, I breathe on it. I sit with my feet planted on the floor. I place my hands on my thighs, palms down, and I just loosen quickly head to toe. I just feel all my muscles, and I just relax them, and then I take a deep breath in. And then exhale, have a nice deep breath out. And then once I did that, I just kind of let my mind relax, and then I'll see stuff. And in that moment, I became so overwhelmed with love, and my room came into my mind. My old room popped into my mind, and I could see the walls, and I could feel how sad I was in that moment. And I just took all that positive energy and I sent it to myself, and I could feel it change. And then I came back, and in that moment I realized a couple concepts that I've been dabbling in felt very true to me, and that is in dealing with the higher self. I had always heard of the higher self being discussed, and honestly how that would work. I mean, from everything I can hear and come across, they make it sound like the higher self comes from a different dimension. And it very well could be that, they are based in a different dimension. However, I am of the belief that in dealing with your higher self more and more, you're expanding your mind, you're expanding your awareness, your understanding. You are becoming, in a sense, your higher self. It is inevitable, in a sense, that you become that being. So then, I'm in point A in 2009. I'm in point B in 2022. And I went ahead and channeled my awareness from my higher self and was used as a conduit to send that energy back to me in 2009. So, from a metaphysical standpoint, you can basically view it as I just created a portal, a link, if you will, and sent myself that energy. Because as crazy as it sounds, I have heard, and you can hear this from series like Doctor Who, they say time is more like a rug, right? It's like it's like a rolled up rug. I honestly have this notion in my head that the way time works on the veil, on the other side of the veil, is not linear as we are experiencing it right now. It's more like everything that's ever happened and ever will happen has already come to pass. It's all playing out at the exact same time. And that's how you're able to interact with it, basically, from the other side. Ghosts, for instance, don't experience time the same way we do. It's much faster on the other side of the veil. So a ghost that's around and haunting a house for 50 years might be 2 weeks for that entity. And, same with those that have actually moved on and then do come back from time to time. I imagine it doesn't take very long for them to, if they come back every so often, I'm assuming it's just more like a day that passes by for them on the other side. So time doesn't move linear, and it is able to be affected by us, by our thoughts, by our notions, because you have such a visceral experience like that, and there ain't no way that anybody can tell me that, no, what you experienced was just a hallucination. It was totally fake, because I don't understand how that is even possible with the realism of it, with how I felt. And again, maybe it's just belief that I have that is feeling that and feeling how everything worked. But in that moment, it really solidified a lot of the concepts that I had been thinking about recently. And again, following that trend, when I do feel that, there has to be something there, and I have to follow that instinct. So that is something that I found very interesting, and again, it gave me an answer to a question that I had been having. It was really awesome stuff, really awesome. And with that, we have come to the end of today's episode. We will have another one for you next week at Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to thank you all so much for listening to this video. This is Fenix Rising. And always remember to embrace the light and spread the light. I'll see you next time.